Well, some days you're the hammer, and some days you're the nail. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Hi, hello, and welcome in to the Ball Don't Lie podcast, episode number 154. If you're watching this on YouTube, you probably just saw me take a drink of my coffee, which I haven't done in a while. When I first restarted the Ball Don't Lie podcast, I made it. I recorded them almost exclusively in the morning. Since then, and with football season and other things happening in life, I've started doing them mostly in the evenings. But today, I'm recording in the morning. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd. And tonight, I'm going to Great American Ballpark to watch the Cincinnati Reds play the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Reds, as of right now, are the final team in the National League wildcard. That's kind of hard to believe. This isn't a Reds podcast, but I give the Reds a lot of credit because I gave up on them, and quite frankly, I still don't believe they're going to make the playoffs, but I gave up on them, and they had plenty of reasons to give up on themselves, and they have fought their way back to put themselves in a position to quote-unquote control their own destiny, and they have a chance, a legitimate chance, to make the playoffs. So kudos to the Reds for that. Congratulations to them. Still 6 games left. 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 3 against the Milwaukee Brewers. One of those games will feature Paul Skeens pitching for Pittsburgh. Not going to be easy for Cincinnati by any stretch, but they are alive, and they deserve credit for that. I've been thinking a lot about an old quote from an old ball coach by the name of Woody Hayes. If you're a Buckeye fan, you know, of course, who Woody is. If you're a football fan, you know who Woody is. And Woody Hayes once famously said that nothing cleanses the soul like getting the hell kicked out of you. Well, that's exactly what happened to the Bengals on Sunday. I was watching the game, and I was thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever seen them play a worse all-around game than the game they're playing right now in Minnesota. That was the thought that was going through my head. There were just awful fumbles. There were bad decisions. There were poor play calling. There's no run game. There were dumb penalties. It was just overall, it was a comedy, truly a comedy of errors from a myriad of different positions that led to the Bengals getting beat by 38 points, the final score being 48-10. That 38-point deficit is the worst in the history of the franchise. Never at any point have they played worse than that or gotten beaten worse than that. They've been beaten by 37 a couple of times, but never by 38 or more. And that's what happened on Sunday in Minnesota. And when you think about it, the history of this franchise, and most notably, the quote-unquote lost decade of the 90s when they were a futile attempt at a football team, and they were a joke of an organization in every way, shape, and form, they still weren't as bad as they were this past Sunday, which is really hard to fathom. If you would have told me prior to the game that Carson Wentz is going to throw for 173 yards and Justin Jefferson is only going to have 75 receiving yards, I would have said, yes, I'll take that. That means the Bengals are probably going to win the game, or at least close to winning the game. Well, that's what happened, and they lost by 38. Cincinnati gave up over 7 yards per carry to backup running back Jordan Mason. Chase Brown, the Bengals starting running back, had 10 carries for 3 yards. His longest run of the day was 4 yards. It was a complete and total ass whooping. Belt to ass. It was an embarrassment. And I don't know exactly what to think of it, what to make of it, how to navigate the future of this season with the Bengals. Number one, let's start with this. Kevin O'Connell is a good coach. He is the reigning NFL Coach of the Year. Brian Flores, as we've talked about, is the best defensive coordinator, or up there with the top 2 or 3 coordinators in the National Football League. Brian Flores multiple times has made good teams look silly with his disguises, his formations, his blitzes, his coverages. He's done that all the time. He continually does it and has made a good living in the National Football League because of it. Hell, he was the head coach in Miami because of it. He's great at it. And some of the stuff they did was diabolical when it comes to disguising at the line of scrimmage. One of the ways you can get a team out of that is by being able to effectively run the football. The Bengals can't do that right now. Their run game is totally broken. Their offensive line is slow and it's soft. This was the worst game I've ever seen Ted Karras and Orlando Brown Jr. play. Orlando Brown Jr., the left tackle, Ted Karras, of course, the center. Those guys were slow, they looked unathletic, and more than anything, they were soft. I said this on the air the other day, and I want to reiterate it. I, by no means, am an NFL caliber football player, nor was I ever at any point in my life, but I did play football, organized football, for a while, and I was on the offensive and defensive line. And when you are playing youth football and into high school football, you are taught the basic fundamentals of how to play the offensive and defensive line when you're a kid like me. And the very basics of that position, specifically talking about the offensive line, are about coming off the ball fast, getting your eyes up. Where your eyes go, your feet will follow. Getting your hands up underneath a defender's shoulder pads and driving your feet. It is about low pad level, physicality at the point of attack, and imposing your will on another man. That is what offensive line play is all about. That is what it's supposed to be about. I don't see that from the Bengals. They look like a timid, soft, scared, slow group of men that don't know what they're doing. And it is hurting this football team. It is the biggest issue right now. Now, defensively, anytime you give up 7 yards per carry, it's going to be a problem. And anytime you turn the ball over 5 times, like the Bengals did, it's going to be a problem. The point I'm trying to make here is, even if the Bengals don't turn the ball over 5 times, it still would have been a tall task for them to win the football game because of how bad that offensive line has played. We know about Burrow's injury. We know about this. We've talked about it constantly. But the issue for me is that the basic fundamentals, the physicality that is required of the position, is non-existent for this group. And I don't know how you change that overnight. When you go back and watch some of the film, you can see the vision, you can see the design, you can see what the play is supposed to look like. And there are times when the running back gets the ball in his hand, and you pause it and you see, okay, there's a running lane. This is going to be a well-blocked play. And then the offensive linemen make contact with the defense. And they are knocked off balance, or they are thrown to their feet, or the blocks are shed easily, or they are driven back into the hole. There is no physicality, there is no aggression, there is no strength, there is nothing coming from that Bengals offensive line. And if you are going to be operating an offense with Jake Browning as your quarterback, you need to be better at running the football. I did an entire episode about this. The importance of running the football and what it causes a defense to do, how it affects your game plan, how it affects their keys, how it affects the way they approach you, what it opens up for the rest of the offense. Right now, teams are daring the Bengals to run because they don't even have to blitz their linebackers to get there. Going into this week, I expected Brian Flores to blitz less than he normally does. Over the course of his career as a defensive coordinator and defensive play caller, Flores blitzes from 30 to 40% of the time. At the high end, over 40%. At the low end, in the low to mid-30s. He blitzed 23% of the time against the Bengals on Sunday, well below his average. Why? Because he didn't need to, because his 4 down linemen, and sometimes 3 down linemen, did a good enough job creating pressure in the pocket. And even if they were in run situations, Minnesota didn't need to blitz because their defensive line could so easily control and manipulate the Bengals' offensive line. This is an embarrassment to Bengals football. It's an embarrassment to the game of football. And this team, the Bengals, are dead in the water if they cannot figure out how to make that offensive line more effective, to do the bare minimum, to just be able to simply run the ball. And rewind to our previous conversations where I said they don't have to be a run-first team, but they have to have a run game that is dependable. They don't have that. That's an issue. I'm going to take another drink of coffee. Aside from that, the Bengals turned the ball over 5 times. Jake Browning threw 2 interceptions. The first one, he just was trying to do too much and escapes the pocket, tries to throw into a tight window. Harrison Smith tips it. Isaiah Rodgers picks it. He takes it to the house. He threw another interception a little bit later on that was caused, I think, by an offensive lineman. Wasn't as much of Jake's fault, but it gets picked off. Noah Fant fumbled. Jamar Chase fumbled. Chase Brown fumbled. Samaje Perine fumbled. The Bengals altogether had 5 turnovers. They had 7 total fumbles. They lost 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it was 5 total fumbles. They lost 3. That's what it was. And, I mean, Jamar Chase never fumbles. And he fumbled. It was just a comedy of errors. And I give a lot of credit to Minnesota. They saw something clearly about the way the Bengals hold the ball, or a potential deficiency in Cincinnati's game, whatever it is, and those dudes were punching the hell out of the football. And they recovered 1 for a touchdown. That was also Isaiah Rodgers, who put together one of the single greatest games by a defensive player in the history of the National Football League. But anytime you turn the ball over 5 times, you're not going to win a game. You're just not. The numbers over the course of history show it's very, very rare to turn the ball over 5 times, to not turn the other team over ever, and win a football game. Just not going to happen. So part of it feels like an outlier, because surely that's not going to happen. Over the course of 52 snaps on Sunday, the Bengals had 5 fumbles. Over the previous 900 snaps, they had 5 fumbles. So historically, it does suggest that it's an outlier, but you cannot allow it to turn into, or you can't allow it to snowball into something that becomes an identity of this team. So part of it, when you lose the way that they lost, and it felt like they didn't really have a chance, is, okay, flush it and move on. Because it is a week-to-week league in the National Football League. And I don't believe that the Bengals we saw in Minnesota are truly indicative of who they are. I think they are a better football team than that. I know they are a better football team than that. But the conversation now shifts to Zach Taylor. Because in the aftermath of a loss like that, you look for somebody to blame. How could you not blame Zach Taylor? It's his team that is clearly unprepared to play an NFL football game. I like Zach. I have been a Zach Taylor defender. But if games like that continue to happen, if this season unravels in that fashion, Zach Taylor will probably lose his job. And I would have no problem with that. I like Zach. I've defended Zach. I've said that multiple times in the past. In 2020 when Burrow got hurt, in 23 when Burrow got hurt, and even last year when they struggled early on in the season, you could tell that team never gave up on Zach Taylor. It kind of felt like they gave up Sunday. If that happens again, I fear that he's lost the locker room. And if he's lost the locker room, it's time to clean house and start over. Because you only have a limited number of time, a limited number of years, a limited amount of time left in the Joe Burrow era. And you've got to get it right. And if Zach loses the locker room, and if this team unravels down the stretch, much like they did against Minnesota, then you have to have a serious conversation about that. You really do. I don't want that to be the case because I think there is something about Zach that works. We've seen the success. We've seen the numbers. We've seen that there is an ability to adjust and adapt midseason that Zach is really good at. But it always feels like there's some meat left on the bone. Like there's still something there that is not maximizing the full potential of the Bengals offense. That's not a good feeling to have, and you can't afford to leave meat on the bone when you're playing with a backup quarterback and a really young defense. Zach has to prove to me that he deserves to keep his job at the end of this year. That's how bad I feel it has gotten after that one loss. Now, I'm not trying to be reactionary. I'm not trying to be emotional, but this is a giant red flag for this team. Getting your ass whooped like that, that's a giant red flag. I'm not going to just put it out there as an outlier. How are they going to respond on the road on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos? That will be a true test, a true measuring stick for who this team is. Elsewhere around the National Football League, as I take another drink of coffee, the Bills beat the Dolphins in a fun, entertaining Thursday night game, 31-21. Miami actually showed signs of life in that game, which is good. I don't think anybody expected them to play as good as they did, but Tua turned the ball over. Steelers over the Patriots, 21-14. This was an ugly game. Patriots also had 5 turnovers in that game. Pittsburgh had no business winning, but they found a way to win. The Indianapolis Colts, they're 3-0. They've punted one time. They smoked the Titans 41-20 in Nashville. It was the Jags over the Texans 17-10. Houston is 0-3. I saw that one coming. Panthers over the Falcons 30-0. Can't say I saw that one coming. Good game from Bryce Young. Terrible game from Michael Penix. The Falcons have since fired their wide receivers coach for some reason. I don't know. Fun game. Eagles over the Rams 33-26. Los Angeles was lining up for a game-winning field goal attempt. It was blocked, taken to the house by Jalen Carter, 300-pounder. They got up to 18 miles per hour. Hard to believe. Eagles are 3-0. Another one that featured a block kick was the Buccaneers over the Jets, 29-27. Jets came all the way back, took the lead. Buccaneers blocked the kick and then won the game. Or actually, the Jets blocked the kick, and then the Buccaneers got the ball back and won the game. I think altogether there was 5 or 6 blocked kicks in the NFL this week. Browns over the Packers, 13-10. Upset of the day by far. Chargers over the Broncos, 23-20. Los Angeles is 3-0 with 3 wins in the AFC West. Saints over the Seahawks, 44-13. Niners over the Cardinals, 16-15. That was an ugly game. Mac Jones up against Kyler Murray. Bad news for San Francisco. Nick Bosa, torn ACL. He is out for the season. It was the Bears routing the Cowboys 31-14 in Chicago. Ben Johnson gets his first career win as a head coach. The Chiefs beat the Giants 22-9 on Sunday Night Football. And then last night, Monday Night Football, in an awesome game, it was the Detroit Lions over the Baltimore Ravens 38-30. And when you look ahead to week 4, the Chiefs and Ravens play. Those teams are both 1-2. One of those teams is going to be 1-3, barring a tie, after next week's games. That's kind of hard to believe, and also provides hope to teams like the Bengals that maybe, just maybe, the AFC, there's a path for them to get in. Other games in week 4. It starts Thursday Night Football with the Seahawks at the Cardinals. The Vikings are at the Steelers, and by at, I mean in Dublin. The first of the NFL International Series gets underway. That is a 9:30 a.m. kickoff from Dublin. The Chargers are at the Giants. Titans at Texans. Commanders travel to Atlanta to play the Falcons. The Saints are in Buffalo to play the Bills. Good game here. Eagles travel to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. The Eagles, their kryptonite has been the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is a 1 o'clock game on Fox. Browns are at the Lions. The Patriots host the Carolina Panthers. The Jags go across country to play the San Francisco 49ers. The Colts also go across the country. They play the Rams. Ravens Chiefs, as I mentioned, that's the 4:25 game on CBS. You've got Bears Raiders in the afternoon. Great Sunday night game as well. The return of Micah Parsons to Dallas. It's the Cowboys hosting the Green Bay Packers. And then we have a Monday Night Football doubleheader. Starts at 7:15 with the Jets in Miami to play the Dolphins. And then at 8:15, the Bengals in Denver to play the Denver Broncos. Should be a fun week of NFL football. We'll give you a bit of a preview as we go into Monday night. And the Bengals and the Broncos, we'll do that coming up a little bit later on this week. Also want to invite you to listen to Cincy 360 wherever you, well, not really wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to it there, but live weekdays from noon to 3 on ESPN 1530. I'm also going to be hosting Extra Innings on 700 WLW this Sunday following the final regular season game for the Cincinnati Reds. And, of course, I'll be on after Bengals Broncos on Monday Night Football until the wee hours of the morning on 700 WLW and ESPN 1530. More on that to come later in the week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Please, if you haven't already, like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, like it, subscribe to the channel, tell somebody about it, post it on your social media, tell everyone you know how much you love this show, and help it grow. As always, have fun, be safe, go Bucks.